Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Deva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jaimudire. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tattva Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamini. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravaktarunda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Canto 4, Chapter 6, Verse 31. Vaiduryakrita Sopana Vapya Utpalamalini Praptam Kim Purusher Drushtva Ta Arad Dadrishurvatam. They also saw that the bathing ghatas and their staircases were made of Vaidurya Mani. The water was full of lotus flowers. Passing by such lakes, the demigods reached a place where there was a great banyan tree. So there's description of Kailas, which is in the heavenly planets. So very beautiful situation there, beautiful environment. Mm, Now now there's going to be description of where Lord Shiva resides. So there's a great banyan tree. Sayojana Shatotsedha Padona Vitapayataha Paryakrita Chayo Nirnidas Tapavarjitaha. That banyan tree was 800 miles high and its branches spread over 600 miles around. Just imagine 800 miles high, 600 miles circumference. The tree cast a fine shade which permanently cooled the temperature, yet there was no noise of birds. Generally, in every tree there are bird nests, and the birds congregate in the evening and create noise. But it appears that this banyan tree was devoid of nests, and therefore it was calm and quiet and peaceful. There were no disturbances from noise or heat, and therefore this place was just suitable for meditation. Tasmin Mahayogamaya Mumukshu Sharanesuraha Dadrushu Shivamaseenam Yaktam Marsham Ivantakam. The demigods saw Lord Shiva sitting under that tree, which was competent to give perfection to mystic yogis by its environment and deliver all people. As grave as time eternal, he appeared to have given up all anger. In this verse, the word Mahayogamaya is very significant. Yoga means meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Mahayoga means those who engage in devotional service of Vishnu. Meditation means remembering, smaranam. There are 9 different kinds of devotional service, of which smaranam is one process. The yogi remembers the form of Vishnu within his heart. Thus, there were many devotees engaged in meditation on Lord Vishnu under the big banyan tree. So there is smaranam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. In fact, Manmana means Smaranam. Manmana, think about me, means remember me. Um, so I just paste, I just shared one quote from the 10th canto. Simply, if one is able to just simply do his chanting or do his whatever duties and hear continuously, always uh, glorious pastimes of Krishna, he can achieve perfection. Always, though. Why? Because when we are doing it always, automatically smaranam happens. Mm. So this, which is why Srila Prabhupada said, read Krishna book daily. right? So if we read Krishna's pastimes daily, of course we are bestowed by Krishna's mercy. We have memory power by which actually we can start remembering the different pastimes without having to read the book. And I've just been observing my own reading. So once we have, once there is certain amount of the details in our mind by hearted, or that we remember, then when we read next, we will then catch all those gaps in our understanding or in our memory or in our remembrance of the past times, and then fill those gaps, meaning our remembrance of the past times become more and more accurate as given in the Shastra. And so repeatedly, when this happens, repeatedly, then at one point of time, we should be able to go through all Krishna's pastimes without having to see any book. And which means automatically smaranam. So wherever we are, whatever we are doing, we can simply remember. And I've told this before also. This is how my father actually did this, and I could see this actual in practice when I was in his hospital in the last day, really difficult situation. He was able to remember the pastimes of Krishna and he was able to narrate. So this is a practical process which works because it has been given by Srila Prabhupada. So this is very, very important actually. So our reading is core, right? So we have to read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Nectar of Devotion, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then repeatedly read Krishna's pastimes repeatedly alongside all this. This is mainstream reading. This is going on. Then maybe just before going to bed, maybe 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever time we have, just reading Krishna's pastimes again and again and again and again and again and again, so that we will remember. So the smaranam is the one process. And of course, then Prabhupada also says when our consciousness becomes so much imbued by Krishna's pastimes, when we simply take the name of, when we chant Hare Krishna, immediately all these pastimes come into our mind naturally, without having to put any effort. Previously, we discussed, should we remember, should we put effort to remember something? No, we should not put any effort. As soon as we say Hare Krishna, suddenly these pastimes have to come. No, because that is the effect of uh, continuous reading or regular reading, remembering. Automatically, those pastimes will come in our mind when we chant Hare Krishna. And so that is our. So we also eventually we have to end up in the chanting process. Also ends up in smaranam. But the initially the process is shravanam. So we have to hear the name, and then automatically when the name hyperlinks, in software terminology, meaning it links to the pastime, then immediately we remember the pastime. So smaranam will automatically happen with chanting. But this should not happen artificially. It should not be done prematurely. Process is Shravanam. We have to hear the names. Because first of all, we have to come to the consciousness that Krishna's name is not different from Krishna. Then only that name will immediately connect us to his pastime. So this process is very, very powerful. We don't have to do anything else. We don't have to find our own way of chanting. Just we have to follow this process. And automatically Smaranam will happen. Smaranam will happen. But it requires effort. The Sanskrit word maha is derived from the affix mahat. The suffix is used when there's a great number of quantity. So Mahayoga indicates that there were many great yogis and devotees meditating on the form of Lord Vishnu. Generally, such meditators are desirous of liberation from material bondage and they're promoted to the spiritual world to one of the Vaikunthas. And liberation means freedom from material bondage or nescience. In the material world, we are suffering life after life because of our bodily identification. Liberation is freedom from the miserable condition of life, which is okay, which is possibly, when uh, for those people who come into Krishna consciousness newly, yeah, for them getting out of this material misery is their goal. Uh, but actual goal should be finding real happiness. And in the process of finding real happiness, we realize that the only way is actually to selflessly serve Krishna. for his pleasure, then we experience real happiness. And then, yeah, when one has reached that state, Vishaya Vinivartante, like we were discussing yesterday, then material world doesn't exist for them. The sufferings of this material world doesn't exist. Doesn't exist means even if they are there, they're not affected. And of course, at one point of time, all these miseries will end, as Krishna has promised. Sarvadharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vrajam tvam sarvapapebhyam mokshayashyami. Mm. Of course, devotees do undergo certain kinds of suffering due to various reasons. Krishna has his own plans to take us back home, back to Godhead. So, like I was saying yesterday, we need to tolerate, um, we need to be satisfied with our material life. We need to be satisfied with our material suffering. We need to be satisfied with our material happiness. And then, so satisfied means tolerate pain. Don't hanker for more materially. Be satisfied. Even with pain, be satisfied and tolerate. And then, if you can go on hankering for spiritual progress, uh, that's the path for perfection. So, for all this, Shravanam is the key. Hearing Krishna's pastimes, the key. सनन्दनाद्यैर्महासिद्धैः शान्तै शान्तविग्रहम् उपास्यमानं सख्या च भर्त्रागुष्यकरक्षसाम्. Lord Shiva sat there, surrounded by saintly persons like Kuvera, the master of the Guhyakas, and the four Kumaras, who were already liberated souls. Lord Shiva was grave and saintly. The personality sitting with Lord Shiva are significant because the four Kumaras were liberated from birth. It may be remembered that after their birth, these Kumaras were requested by their father to get married and beget children in order to increase the population of the newly created universe. But they refused, and at that time, Lord Brahma was angry. In that angry mood, Rudra, Lord Shiva, was born. Thus, they were intimately related. In some sense, they are brothers. Kuvera, the treasurer of the demigods, is fabulously rich. Thus, Lord Shiva's association with the Kumaras and Kuvera indicates that he has all transcendental and material opulences. So, because Kuvera means material opulences, Kumaras means transcendental opulences, so he has both. Actually, he is the qualitative incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his position is very exalted. विद्यातपोयोगपथं स्थितं तम् अधीश्वरं चरन्तं विश्वसुहृदं वात्सल्याल्लोकमङ्गलम्. Demigods saw Lord Shiva situated in his perfection as the master of the senses, knowledge, fruitive activities, and the path of achieving perfection. He was the friend of the entire world, and by virtue of his full affection for everyone, he was very auspicious. Hmm. So this is also quality of Krishna. Surdam Sarvabhutanam. Lord Shiva is full of wisdom and tapasya. One who knows the modes of work is understood to be situated on the path of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. One who knows the modes of work, meaning various ways of working. One will engage in devotional service. One cannot serve the Supreme Person of Godhead unless one has achieved full perfectional knowledge in the ways and means of performing devotional service. One cannot serve the Supreme Person. This is perfectional knowledge. That means Sambandha Gnana, full perfectional knowledge, and Abhideya, both we should know. So we should have full perfectional knowledge in the ways and means of performing devotional service. Because otherwise, like again, it's the same thing, right? Uh, we should be able to differentiate between mixed devotion and pure devotion. We should know what is allowed, what is not allowed. All these things we have to know. That is the ways and means. And one should have full perfectional knowledge. We should know exactly how it has to be done to be perfect. And one who engages in that way, he will be able to serve the Supreme Person of Godhead. We can't expect Krishna to accept whatever, however we do, right? We know that, in the initial stages when we are in Vaidhi stage, Vishnu only accepts our offerings. because we don't have any love. Krishna doesn't accept anything if it lacks love. Mm. So we cannot serve him unless we come to this platform uh, of loving him. So gradually, slowly and gradually, we will come to that stage. But we have to know right and wrong and follow the right path. Just mm, doing bhakti however we want will not help us achieve that state. Lord Shiva is described here as Adhishwara. Ishvara means controller. Adhishwara means particularly controller of the senses. Generally, our materially contaminated senses are apt to engage in sense gratificatory activities. Mm. Natural, this is natural for us because our senses are materially contaminated. So we are uh, very easy and it is apt for us to engage in sense gratificatory activities. Mm. Yeah. So if we are attracted towards sense gratificatory activities, then we should know that we are still materially contaminated. But when a person is elevated by wisdom and austerity, senses then become purified and they become engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord. Hmm. So this should be our aim, that we should be elevated by wisdom and austerity. So we have to do some austerity. Um, you know, willingly give up certain things for Krishna's pleasure. By that we purify our senses. For example, Chaturmasya purifies senses. Offering our hard-earned money for Krishna purifies our senses. Mm. Yeah, so little bit austerities for Krishna, physical austerity, mental austerity. All this, if you do, senses become purified and they become engaged in the service of Krishna. Otherwise, they'll remain contaminated and they will remain in the service of Maya. Mm. So it is very, very important that we have to purify our senses. The whole reason for our existence is purifying senses at this point of time. Because when they purify that paratvena nirmalam, rishikena rishikesha sevanam. Because only when the senses become purified can we actually engage in the service of the Lord. And one very important thing is, with the determination, we should try to avoid situations which contaminate our senses. How does this happen? And generally, if you are engaged with asat sangha, in the association of non-devotees, this happens. Even if there is one person who is not a devotee at home, this happens. Unfortunately, for such situations require us to be a lot more determined, but at the same time, we should have intelligence to actually manage situations such that it doesn't become worse. So there are very lot of complications for devotees, but exposing ourselves to the contamination will delay our purification. Mm, then obviously, which means that we take time for us to reach perfection. So as far as possible, we should prevent uh, contaminating our senses more. We are already contaminated. If we engage in with asat, then it will get contaminated more further. Lord Shiva is the emblem of such perfection, and therefore in the scriptures it is said, Vaishnavanam yatha Shambhu. Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava. Lord Shiva, by his actions within this material world, teaches all conditioned souls how to engage in devotional service 24 hours a day. How does he do? He's just sitting and discussing about Krishna. He's always doing dhyana. He's meditating. He's not engaged in any material activity. Though his wife is engaged, but he's not engaged. He's just engaged in devotional service 24 hours a day. Therefore, he is described here as Lokamangala, good fortune, personified for all conditioned souls. Mm. So, this is the position of all devotees. Devotees are for Lokamangalam. Devotees give good fortune to all conditioned souls. And we should also follow in the footsteps of Lord Shiva. 24 hours a day engaging in bhakti, keeping our senses purified, preventing contamination. This is the life of a devotee. And this requires day in and day out utsaha nishchaya dhairya. Day in, day out, we have to be enthusiastic. We have to be determined. We have to be patient. Hmm. Lingam chatapasabhishtam bhasmadanda jatajinam angena sandhyabharucha chandralekham cha bibhritam. He was seated on a deer skin and was practicing all forms of austerity. Because his body was smeared with ashes, he looked like an evening cloud. On his hair was the sign of a half moon, a symbolic representation. Lord Shiva's symptoms of austerity are not exactly those of a Vaishnava. Lord Shiva is certainly the number one Vaishnava, but he exhibits a feature for a particular class of men who cannot follow the Vaishnava principles. The Shaivites, the devotees of Lord Shiva, generally dress like Lord Shiva and sometimes they indulge in smoking and taking intoxicants. Such practices are never accepted by followers of Vaishnava rituals. So we should not imitate great personalities. Lord Shiva, he knows what he's doing. So we cannot just say, okay, I will also do something like that only. I will also not follow Vaishnava principles. I will do whatever I want. No, this is not for ordinary people like us. This is for great souls who have, who are so powerful that none of these actually affect them. Mm, mm, doesn't matter whether Lord Shiva is in Vaishnava clothes or not. Like Prabhupada once said, if you have to distribute books, you can go in karmi clothes, right? But he said, no question about not having shika. Mm. So she said shika and tilak would be there. But yeah, if you don't have to want to wear dhoti kurta, that's going to help in book distribution, you can do that. So acharyas can give some recommendations which we can follow, but we cannot by ourselves, speculate and create some standards for ourselves. And this is all not acceptable. It's not going to help us basically. Yeah, we can do whatever we want. It's not going to help us. Upavishtam darbham mayyam brishyam brahma sanatanam naradaya pravochantam prachate shinvatam satam. He was seated on a straw mattress and speaking to all present, including the great sage Narada, to whom he specifically spoke about the absolute truth. The Lord was sitting on a mattress of straw because such a sitting place is accepted by persons who are practicing austerities to gain understanding of the absolute truth. In this verse, it is specifically mentioned that he was speaking to the great sage Narada, celebrated devotee. Narada was asking Lord Shiva about devotional service, and Shiva, being the topmost Vaishnava, was instructing him. In other words, Lord Shiva and Narada were discussing the knowledge of the Veda, but it is to be understood that the subject matter was devotional service. Another point in this connection is that Lord Shiva is the supreme instructor and the great sage Narada is the supreme audience. Therefore, the supreme subject matter of Vedic knowledge is bhakti or devotional service. Prabhupada uses all kinds of logic to establish devotional service. Yeah, see, because without acharyas telling us, so the word here is Brahma, Brahma Sanatanam. So they are talking about Pravochantam, Brahma Sanatanam, eternal Brahman, absolute truth. But what is that eternal absolute truth? Based on the personalities engaged in the conversation, one has to decide what is the topic, what is the specific topic of absolute truth being discussed. It could be Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. So when both are Vaishnavas, then it has to be about Bhagavan, about devotional service, about bhakti. कृत्वोरौ दक्षिणे सव्यं पादपद्मं च जानुनि बाहुं प्रकोष्ठे क्षमालाम् आसीनं तर्कमुद्रया. His left leg was placed on his right thigh. So left leg was placed on his right thigh, and his left hand was placed on his left thigh. His sitting posture is called Virasana. In his right hand, he held Rudraksha beads, and his finger was in the mode of argument. Sitting posture described here is called Virasana according to the system of Ashtanga Yoga performances. In the performance of yoga, there are 8 divisions such as Yama and Niyama, controlling, following the rules and regulations. Then Asana, sitting postures. Besides Virasana, there are other sitting postures such as Padmasana, Siddhasana. Practice of these asanas without elevating oneself to the position of realizing the Supersoul Vishnu is not the perfectional stage of yoga. Lord Shiva is yogi, is called Yogishwara, the master of all yogis, and Krishna is called Yogeshwara. Wow, okay, technicality. Yogishwara, Yogeshwara. Yogishwara indicates that no one can surpass the yoga practice of Lord Shiva. And Yogeshwara indicates no one can surpass the yogic perfection of Krishna. Hmm. So one is yoga practice, the other is yogic perfection. Hmm. The Lord Shiva is the best yogi, is the master of all yogis. And Krishna is the master of all yogic perfection. Hmm. Yoga plus Ishvara. Yogi plus Ishvara. Okay. Another significant word is Tarka Mudra. This indicates that the fingers are opened and the second finger is raised along with the arm to impress the audience with some subject matter. This is actually a symbolic representation. Basically, yeah, finger in the mode of argument. तं ब्रह्मनिर्वाणसमाधिमाश्रितं व्युपाश्रितं गिरिशं योगकक्षां कलोकपालामुनयो मनूनाम् आद्यं मनुं प्राञ्जलयः प्रणेमुः. All the sages and demigods headed by Indra offered their respectful obeisances unto Lord Shiva with folded hands. Lord Shiva was dressed in saffron garments and absorbed in trance, thus appearing to be the foremost of all sages. He is absorbed in trance. In this verse, the word Brahmananda is significant. This Brahmananda or Brahma Nirvana is explained by Prahlad Maharaj. When one is completely absorbed in Adhokshaja, Supreme Person of Godhead, who is beyond the sense perception of materialistic persons, one is situated in Brahmananda. It is impossible to conceive of the existence, name, form, quality, and pastimes of the Supreme Lord because he is transcendentally situated beyond the conception of materialistic persons. Because materialists cannot imagine or conceive of the Supreme Person of Godhead, they may think that God is dead, but factually he is always existing in his Satchidananda Vigraha. And so people talk about Krishna dying. Yeah, but he's not born, he doesn't die. Just like we are not born, we don't die. Constant meditation concentrated on the form of the Lord is called Samadhi, ecstasy or trance. Samadhi means particularly concentrated attention. So one who has achieved the qualification of always meditating on the personality of Godhead is to be understood to be always in trance and enjoying Brahma Nirvana or Brahmananda. Lord Shiva exhibited those symptoms and therefore it is said that he was absorbed in Brahmananda. Of course, meditating on the Supreme Lord just doesn't mean, yeah, it is meditating on his form, quality, pastimes, all of that is Samadhi. Mm. So when we hear Krishna's pastimes, when we hear Bhagavatam and our mind doesn't go here and there, we are in Samadhi. There's complete disconnection with the world around us. And whatever we experience, then happiness is Brahmananda. Lord Shiva exhibited those symptoms, and therefore it is stated that he was absorbed in Brahmananda. Another significant word is yoga kaksham. Yoga kaksha is the sitting posture in which the left thigh is fixed under one's tightly knotted saffron colored garment. Okay. Also, the words Manu, Nam, Adyam are significant here because they mean a philosopher or one who is thoughtful and can think very nicely. Such a man is called Manu. Lord Shiva is described in this verse as the chief of all thinkers. Lord Shiva, of course, does not engage in useless mental speculation, but as stated in the previous verse, is always thoughtful regarding how to deliver the demons from their fallen condition of life. So we also have to become manus. We have to become thoughtful regarding how to take Krishna consciousness to everybody. So mm, one of the goals that we have set for ourselves in our preaching centers is to reach Srila Prabhupada's books to each and every home in the area. So we want to go door to door and distribute books so that every house has at least one book of Srila Prabhupada. So we have to somehow uh, be thoughtful about this. Um, so really, if at all any center for that matter, any Krishna conscious ISKCON center, um, the main activity should be that of book distribution and preaching. Everything else is ancillary activities, supporting activities. Because if there is no book distribution, if there's no preaching, there's no life. Prabhupada used to give a lot of emphasis, and he said automatically if somebody does good sadhana, then they will do good book distribution, good preaching, then good deities worship. Everything else will become good. So it is good chanting and then focus on book distribution and preaching. This has to be, this is the way we deliver uh, Krishna consciousness to everybody. It is said that during the advent of Lord Chaitanya, Sadashiva appeared as Advaita Prabhu, and Advaita Prabhu's chief concern was to elevate the fallen conditioned souls to the platform of devotional service to Lord Krishna. Uh, Also, many times uh, there will be so many services and so few devotees that literally devotees will be running around, one service to another without really thinking of the end goal, which is to actually give devotional service to other people. So while all activities have to go on, focus must remain on preaching and book distribution. Since people were engaged in useless occupations which would continue their material existence, Lord Shiva in the form of Lord Advaita appealed to the Supreme Lord to appear as Lord Chaitanya to deliver these illusioned souls. Useless occupation. Even today, it is the same thing. People are engaged in useless occupations which would continue their material existence. Savai pumsan paro dharmo yatho bhakti radokshade ahituke pratiheta yayatma suprasidati. Paradharma, that is the supreme occupation, is to engage in devotional service. Alongside, there is a vritti dharma which can be done, but vritti dharma is not the goal of life. Vritti dharma means just engaging in some occupation for our livelihood. That's not the goal of our life. That is there because we have to maintain body and soul together. So we need some occupation, we need some money, we need to maintain ourselves, etc. But just engaging only in the useless occupation of bodily maintenance will continue our material existence. Mm. So, as devotees, at least we should not be doing this because we are supposed to tell others to not be just focused on material prosperity, but to deliver Krishna consciousness to others. If we are only not doing, what can we tell others? If we are only engaged in material activities of material improvement, then what can we tell others? Apani Achari, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, preach by your actions. Actually, Lord Chaitanya appeared on the request of Lord Advaita. Similarly, Lord Shiva has a sampradaya, the Rudra sampradaya. He's always thinking about the deliverance of the fallen souls as exhibited by Lord Advaita Prabhu. This is what Prabhupada taught us. Prabhupada was relentlessly always thinking about how to spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world. Of course, he was a world acharya. We might be like a small ant or less than that in comparison to him, but we can at least try to do this in our own realm, in our own space, whatever little space we have, we can do in that. But this is important. If we don't start meditating on this, meditating on how to distribute Krishna consciousness, then we will simply be meditating on our material life and how to improve it, which is of no use, which is just going to result in more material bondage. Okay, I'll stop here. If there are any questions, comments, feel free.
Prabhuji, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Prabhuji, we know that non-devotees are suffering because of their previous karmas and all.
Hmm.
But if a devotee is suffering, we should think, is it because of his previous karma, or
Okay.
it is Krishna's some plan for the devotees?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this one, very difficult question to answer. So we cannot generally say about any devotee. In general, we all have our karma phala. The karma phala takes time to get burnt out. Okay. So when we are in sadhana bhakti, neophyte stage, till we come to nishta, so which is ado shraddha tata sadhu sangha bhajana kriya anartha nivritti, then nishta. So till we come to nishta, our karma phala will not be destroyed. I mean, is in the process of destruction. So till then, whatever we are suffering is technically because of our previous karma. When we come to nishta, post nishta, possibly we can say whatever is happening is now Krishna's special mercy for whatever reason. Mm, right. So for most of us, we can say because we take a lot of time to come to the platform of nishta. Or that is, nishta also means Brahma Bhuta. Um, so yeah, if we can come to nishta immediately, then yeah, we will, which means that we've already gotten over our karma phala. Mm, so but yeah, coming there is a matter of Tivra Bhakti. Mm. See, this is where actually it's a very good question one Mataji has asked. Most devotees want to get rid of all material suffering. Everybody wants to get rid of their material suffering, but they don't want to put effort for that. They want it to come free, and that's not going to happen. If you remain sentimental on the platform of bhakti, again, that will not happen. So we have to follow process Shravanam Kirtanam. So basically, do chanting, do reading, understand philosophy, follow the right path, like we said, do's and don'ts, engage in bhakti nicely. Then automatically we should start seeing our anarthas vanishing. What are the anarthas? One of the biggest anarthas is material attachment. So if material attachment has not vanished, then my anarthas have not gone, so we have not come to nishta. So which means that whatever then till then we are suffering is all our karma phala. So if you want to get rid of all sufferings, then we have to come to nishta, which means that we have to really put effort. It's not easy. I mean, yeah, of course, unless somebody has already made enough progress from their last lives and very quickly, most of these, great preachers in ISKCON today, great devotees, sannyasis, big brahmacharis, even many big stars, very qualified. They've come, they've entered this life possibly with lot of progress from their previous life of bhakti, of course, and some might be like really exalted that they made immense progress even in one life, and they made so yeah, for such people, they'll quickly come to nishta, and then their material sufferings all end. Or yeah, even if it is there, it is Krishna's will to bring them closer to him. But most of us, for a majority part of our life, will suffer our karmic reactions unless we are very, very intense about our bhakti. Is that okay, Radhika
Yes,
Mataji?
Prabhuji. Thank you,
Okay.
Prabhuji.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Then we'll close here.
Pranam
Yeah,
Prabhuji. Just
Pramataji.
a request, could you please share the page you once discussed with us, like the symbols of lotus feet of Krishna?
You can just go online anywhere and just search for
No,
Krishna's
but
lotus.
I was thinking, I don't know which one is authentic.
No, ISKCON
It
Desiredly
is
has. Okay, I can share the link. I'll share
okay.
the link. I mean, it's on the internet only. I don't have. I took
Okay.
something from the
Okay.
internet and shared, but I can share it. No problem.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय जगत गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यः पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.